Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today is going to be my week 1 waiver wire episode. So in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about, guys that you can pick up prior to week 1 on waivers. They could potentially help your team down the road essentially. So these are not particularly guys that you're going to pick up start week 1. This is if you got that extra spot on your bench, you picked up a guy that was on IR during your draft like a Michael Thomas and you're putting him on IR. Somebody like that. So these are guys that you're pretty much stashing on your bench, trying to beat that week 2 waiver wire. Because, some of these guys have a chance to go off week 1, and you want to be in there ahead of time. So if you're in a league that uses fab, you're not spending 30% of your fab budget on one guy right away after a big week 1, or you're not wasting your number 1 waiver priority if you're in a league that uses that system as well. So we're going to start off with the quarterback position. We got Jameis Winston. He is rostered on 26% of ESPN leagues, 43% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Green Bay Packers week 1. Not the worst matchup in the world. He does have Carolina next week, which could potentially be a good matchup, and then the New England Patriots the week after that. So Jameis Winston, obviously, we've seen him have that big year where he led the league in yards. Obviously, he's most notably for that 30-30 season. There is some upside here. There is some upside playing with the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton's offense. So just a good guy to maybe stash on your bench and see what happens with him. Then we got Mac Jones, rookie quarterback out of Alabama, starting for the New England Patriots week 1 against the Miami Dolphins. Probably not a matchup that I want to roll him out against week 1 just because the Dolphins have a pretty good defense. And we're not sure exactly what this offense is going to look like. And he is rostered in 22% of ESPN leagues, 26% of Yahoo leagues. So there's a good chance that he's out there. A good guy kind of stash. He does go up against the New York Jets next week, which has one of the worst units of cornerbacks in the league. So potentially a good streaming option next week if we see some good things out of him this week. Then potentially one that you could even play this week. Probably don't have to, because if you're in a 1 quarterback league, whoever you drafted is probably a better option week 1 regardless. But Zach Wilson, rostered in 16% of ESPN leagues, 18% of Yahoo leagues, goes against the Panthers this week. Should be a fairly favorable matchup, a very good and interesting DFS play as well. Looked very good in the preseason. We'll see what he looks like game 1. But like I said, he goes against the Panthers week 1, goes against the Patriots next week, and then Denver. So not too excited about him the next couple weeks. But a guy that you stash on the end of your bench, maybe he turns into this year's Justin Herbert. Then last but not least, we got Carson Wentz. And, throughout history, we've seen good Carson Wentz. We've seen bad Carson Wentz. He's a guy that goes against a favorable matchup week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. There could be a little bit of something there. He goes against a couple other tougher matchups down the road, too. So he's not somebody that I'm looking to play right away. He's kind of somebody to pick up, stash on your bench, and see if we get good Carson Wentz back. But only rostered in 7% of ESPN leagues, 15% of Yahoo leagues, so there's a good chance that he's out there. So overall, that's kind of the quarterbacks. If I'm looking right now, probably the one that I'm going after the most is probably Mac Jones. I am a big proponent of Zach Wilson, but he does have a little bit tougher schedule to start the season. Next, we move over to the running back position, and we got some interesting names here, honestly. So typically, I like to keep these to guys that are rostered in 50% or less in both Yahoo and ESPN. If you guys play on another site, just check these names out because there's a decent chance that they have similar rostership percentages over there as well. So Philip Lindsay kind of bucks this trend just because he's 52% rostered on ESPN, 49% on Yahoo. There is a good chance that he is the lead running back for the Houston Texans week 1 and potentially for the whole season. So the fact that he's out there in about half of leagues, he's a good guy to stash on the end of your bench. I know a lot of people are not excited about the Houston Texans offense, Houston Texans team as a whole. But Philip Lindsay has shown in the past that he can be an effective running back and useful for fantasy football. Then we move down to James White. He's rostered in 45% of ESPN leagues, so a little bit higher over there, 30% of Yahoo leagues. So better chance that he's out there in Yahoo leagues. If you are in a PPR league, Mac Jones being named the starting quarterback is great news for James White. I know some people are concerned because he's a little bit older now, 28, 29 years old. But for a pass-catching running back, age is not a major factor, as big as it is for some of these guys, that are carrying the ball 200 to 250 times a year. James White is never going to do that. And he's shown that upside as a pass catcher. So if you're looking for a useful flex, useful guy to stash on your bench, fill some bye weeks, James White could be the guy and offer some weekly upside as well. Then we move over to Tyson Williams. He is a second-year undrafted running back out of BYU for the Baltimore Ravens. There's some things that we already know about the Baltimore Ravens. J.K. Dobbins tore his ACL. He's not going to play this year. Justice Hill, who I did pick up in one of my other leagues, he tore his Achilles last Thursday in practice, so he's not going to be able to play this year either. At this point in time, it's only Gus Edwards and Tyson Williams. Yes, they're going to bring in a third running back. But the guys that are out there on the streets are not too attractive. I know they brought in Devonta Freeman and Le'Veon Bell, but the fact that those two guys are pretty much not drawing any interest at all from teams is pretty much all you need to know. Tyson Williams could be a change of pace back for the Baltimore Ravens backfield. We obviously know they are one of the run-heaviest teams in the league, and if, God forbid, something happens to Gus Edwards as well, Tyson Williams could be a potential league winner. He's only rostered in about 18% of ESPN leagues, 29% of Yahoo leagues, so there's a pretty good chance that he's out there. And even if you're still drafting tonight, Wednesday night, if you're willing to take a flyer, a late-round flyer on a guy like Tyson Williams, it has some potential to pay off. Now, next up, we have another New England running back, and that is Ramondre Stevenson, preseason darling. I'll say this to start with. I was not big on Ramondre Stevenson coming out of college, but he's shown the ability to play with some more physicality in the preseason. That's something that I really do like. And the Patriots drafted him for a reason. They wanted that bigger back. They wanted that goal line back. And this is a guy that could have double-digit touchdowns this season. So, especially if you're playing in a standard league, this is a guy you want to stash on the end of your bench. And God forbid something ever happens to Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the main lead workhorse running back for the New England Patriots. And he's available in 82% of ESPN leagues, 75% of Yahoo leagues. This is a guy that you want to stash because if he ends up having 2 touchdowns week 1, this is a guy that people are going to be going crazy for. They're going to be spending their fab budget. They're going to be burning that number 1 waiver wire priority for, and that is Ramondre Stevenson. But even if it doesn't happen week 1, a good guy to stash on the end of your bench that could have some potential value this season. Then last but not least, at the running back position, I got Mr. Wayne Gallman. I was a big proponent of Wayne Gallman coming into the season when he was with the 49ers. Part of that was just because, the running backs that they have there, most of them had an injury history. He is a guy that's good in pass protection, decent catcher of the ball as well. Pretty solid running back when he's filled in for Saquon Barkley in the past. Before Saquon got drafted to the Giants, he did show some flashes as well. Goes to Atlanta now. There's a ton of opportunity here. I know everybody's gung-ho on Mike Davis because of last season, but there's a chance that this ends up being a split backfield. Even in a split backfield for the Falcons, that a team, a lot of people really think are going to throw the ball a lot. Wayne Gallman is going to have value, and he needs to be rostered. 5% on ESPN leagues, 4% on Yahoo leagues. That's just ridiculous. There's no reason that he should be less than 50% at this point in time because he could overtake Mike Davis for that lead running back job in Atlanta sooner than later. So these are the running backs that I would roster. I'm honestly really interested in all these guys. If you have room to pick one of these guys up, if they're available in your league, I would definitely recommend doing so. They're all great potential stash plays. Now we move over to the wide receiver position, and wide receiver is a little bit more plentiful. So these are guys that you're picking up that could have some value this season. Like I said, with most of the other positions, probably not guys that you're going to roll out week 1. So we got Tyrell Williams roster in 34% of ESPN leagues, 31% of Yahoo leagues. Is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Detroit Lions. We've seen him have some fantasy success in the past, 1,000-yard season. And even in that first season when he was with the Raiders, he did have some fantasy value. So Tyron Williams, definitely got to watch out in Detroit. Reunites with his old coach, Anthony Lynn, so that could be something to watch out for. He's a guy that knows this playbook at least, and there's not much competition for targets from the wide receiver position. Then we move down to Russell Gage. He's rostered in 33% of ESPN leagues, 28% of Yahoo leagues, so pretty good chance that he's out there. He's a guy that we saw have over 100 targets last year. Julio Jones is gone now. I know everybody's excited for Kyle Pitts, but Russell Gage is going to be involved in this offense. I have him playing kind of a similar role to last season in terms of targets. I don't think he's going to be much higher than that, but a solid wide receiver 4 to have on your team, fill in on your bye weeks, a flex play at that. I think he has a decent amount of value and somebody that's worth having on your bench. Then we move down to Rondale Moore for the Arizona Cardinals, a guy that I was super high on in the pre-draft prospect. Athletic freak. I know he's only 5'7", 180 pounds, but this guy can ball. Rostered in 19% of ESPN leagues, 22% of Yahoo leagues. If he gets a role, if he gets the targets in this Arizona offense, he could be a PPR darling this season. And this is a guy that you should have stashed on your bench right away because he's electric after the catch. If he somehow ends up getting 8 to 9 targets a game, watch out because Rondale Moore is going to be a league winner in that case. Speaking of other rookies, we got Terrace Marshall Jr. from the LSU. A guy that I wasn't super high on in the pre-draft process. I do see the upside there. There is some concerns as well. Looked pretty good in the preseason. He's rostered in about 20% of leagues on both Yahoo and ESPN. So a good chance that he's out there. A guy to stash on your end of your bench. See what he does with the Carolina Panthers. I am not a big proponent of Sam Darnold in general, but if one of these other 2 wide receivers goes down for some reason, Terrace Marshall Jr. could be a potential league winner as well. So there is some upside there. And if Sam Darnold shows out and shows he's actually this quarterback that a lot of people thought he was coming out of USC, there could be potential upside as well. Then last but not least, on this first page of wide receivers, I do have 2 pages worth of wide receivers just because there is a lot of potential stashes out there at the wide receiver position. We got Bryan Edwards for the Las Vegas Raiders. A lot of people were super high on him last year in the preseason. Hurt his ankle, tried to play through it, just didn't end up too well. Not a very exciting rookie season. Nelson Aguilar, their leading wide receiver from last year, is gone. I know Darren Waller's still going to be the focal point of the offense. They also have first-round pick from last year, Henry Ruggs. But beyond that, the wide receiver position is a dry cupboard. You got guys like Willie Snead, Zay Jones. They do not excite anyone. So Bryan Edwards could end up being the number 1 wide receiver on this team. And, being rostered in 14% of ESPN leagues, 13% of Yahoo leagues, he's definitely available and definitely a guy that you want to take a shot on. Then for some more wide receivers, then we got Sterling Shepard, who is a pretty solid, underrated wide receiver. Kenny Galladay banged up in the preseason. Evan Ingram banged up in the preseason. There's a chance that he's the number 1 option in terms of targets on this team early on in the season. If that happens, Sterling Shepard's going to end up being rostered in more than 50% of leagues. Right now, looking at 21% of ESPN leagues, 40% of Yahoo leagues. So there's a decent amount of availability for Sterling Shepard, a guy that's a good player to have on the end of your bench and fill in for bye weeks. Kind of like your Russell Gage. Offers maybe a little bit more upside than Russell Gage. So then we move down to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I mentioned already with Tyrell Williams, that Lions passing game, there's not a clear wide receiver 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown could be that slot wide receiver, could be the next Cooper Kupp for Jared Goff. Is he going to be as good as Cooper Kupp fantasy-wise? No. But he could still see a decent amount of targets to make him fantasy relevant. Wide receiver 3, flex play, fill-in player like that. St. Brown was a wide receiver that I did like quite a bit out of USC. Profiles very well as that slot wide receiver, great body control, decent separator, good route runner, has a chance to be successful early on at the NFL level. So a guy that's worth stashing on the end of your bench. Then we move over to Gabriel Davis of the Buffalo Bills. Rostered in about 13% of ESPN leagues, 9% of Yahoo leagues. We saw a little bit of what he could do last year, 7 touchdowns. Looked very good at times. Had some problems with drops. If he ends up being the number 2 wide receiver for Buffalo, and it's not Emmanuel Sanders, he's going to have a ton of value. He's going to be rostered in pretty much every league. So if he comes out, plays like he did in the preseason, definitely a guy that you want to have stashed on your bench. Then last but not least, at the wide receiver position, we got Tre'Quan Smith. We haven't seen him in the preseason. He's been banged up. He's been kind of ineffective his whole career. We're still waiting for that breakout out of him. Marquez Callaway, preseason darling. He's the one that's getting drafted upwards of the 10th round now. Before the preseason, coming in the year when we knew Michael Thomas was going to be out, Tre'Quan Smith was the hot name. Now things have kind of flip-flopped. So let's just say Tre'Quan Smith comes out game 1. He plays very well. Say Jair Alexander's on Marquez Callaway and Kevin King's on Tre'Quan Smith, and he has a nice game against Kevin King. People are going to be rushing to the waiver wires to grab Tre'Quan Smith. You can be ahead of the waiver wires. He's rostered in about 6% of leagues on both ESPN and Yahoo, so there's a very, very good chance that he's out there still. So this is a guy that you could be first to the waiver wire on and be ahead of your league mates and maybe even trade him after that big week 1 if that would happen. But that's pretty much what I got for the wide receiver position. A lot of great stashes here. Not anybody that I'm really interested playing week 1, but if they have a big week 1, definitely going to have some value going forward. Then we move over to the tight end position. If you guys watched my Guys video, yes, you already know that Zach Ertz was on my Guys video. He's my Guy tight end for the season. And he's being mad disrespected right now. He's still the tight end 1 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Has a great matchup week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons too. So this is a guy that you can plug and play week 1 if you need a tight end. If you drafted a tight end late, you don't like their matchup week 1, a perfect guy to stream right away. And he's the guy that offers some upside on the season. Roster in 25% of ESPN leagues, 31% of Yahoo leagues. That is mad disrespect for a guy that finishes a top 4 tight end 3 of the last 4 years. Him and Jalen Hurts have already shown great chemistry, so definitely a guy that I'm very, very interested in. Blake Jarwin was preseason darling last year pretty much on all accounts from major fantasy platforms. Tore his ACL week 1. He's back now. Supposedly looks all right in the preseason. Not really interested in playing him week 1 against Tampa Bay. Kind of want to see how everything shakes out, but a guy that if you stash on the end of your bench could have some fantasy value. Roster in about 10% of ESPN leagues, 17% of Yahoo leagues. Definitely a decent chance there. Plus, Dak Prescott has been known to love targeting the tight end in general. Then we move down to another New Orleans Saints player, and this time it is Juwan Johnson. He is a former wide receiver converted over to tight end. Adam Troutman is banged up with an ankle injury. Nick Vanette's on IR now. They don't have many options at tight end. I guess they could throw Taysom Hill out there too if you want to go that route, but not recommending that for fantasy. Juwan Johnson has looked decent in the preseason. Athletic tight end, and we know athletic tight ends, sometimes wide receiver converts, can have a lot of value. Look at Darren Waller a couple years ago. I'm not saying he's the next Darren Waller, but this is a guy that you could stash on the end of your bench literally for free. Week 1, week 2, see if he does anything. See if Adam Troutman's going to be out for an extended period of time. And if that happens, Juwan Johnson could get some run. He's rostered in 1% of ESPN leagues and 10% of Yahoo leagues, so there's still a pretty good chance that he's out there. Then last but not least, we're going to talk about Mr. Tyler Kroft, the starting tight end for the New York Jets, who's available in 99% of ESPN and Yahoo leagues. Sounds pretty ridiculous for a starting tight end who's tied to a rookie quarterback. We know rookie quarterbacks love to target the tight end position in general. He has shown good chemistry with Zach Wilson. They had a 2-touchdown game together in the preseason. Tyler Kroft, a guy that's had some flashes in the past, but really dealt with injuries. So a guy that is a perfect streaming tight end, goes up against Carolina week 1. Not the worst matchup in the world. You could even stream that if you really want to. A great DFS play week 1. And definitely offers some potential upside in a relatively unknown Jets offense. So there's a chance that Tyler Kroft could be the Logan Thomas, could be, that Robert Tonyan that comes out from last year. And, sneaks into being a solid tight end 1. Not saying it's going to happen, but there is a chance. And if you are in on him week 1, stashed him on your bench, you could be ahead of the curve. Then last but not least, we're just going to talk about some defenses. I will mention the matchups, this week and the coming weeks for these defenses as well. But the Miami Dolphins roster in 37% of ESPN leagues, 33% of Yahoo leagues. They were one of the top defenses last year, so it's kind of confusing that they're available in so many leagues. Go against the Patriots week 1. We got a rookie quarterback, and Mac Jones could be a favorable matchup there. We'll see if it happens or not. But it's not the worst matchup if you need a matchup to stream. Hopefully you guys are not needing to stream a defense week 1. Hopefully you were able to grab someone like the San Francisco 49ers who go against the Lions, Denver Broncos that go against the Giants week 1. Those are 2 of my favorite matchups for week 1 in general. They go against the Buffalo Bills in week 2. Not a matchup that you want to play. Then the Las Vegas Raiders after that could be a fairly favorable matchup. Chicago Bears, roster in 11% of ESPN leagues, 25% of Yahoo leagues. We've seen this team be a good defense in the past. There is some question marks about their corner unit. They do play the Rams week 1, so it's not a matchup that I'm trying to play them in at all. Cincinnati week 2, that could be a favorable one, getting some sacks on Joe Burrow. We already know Cincinnati's offensive line isn't the best. And then Cleveland in week 3, not the most favorable matchup, but you do have the Detroit Lions the week after that as well. So kind of mix and match. You could play the Bears here and there. Probably a good defense to stream on favorable matchups. Then we move down to the Seattle Seahawks. They're only rostered in 7% of ESPN leagues, 10% of Yahoo leagues. They go against the Colts week 1. The Seahawks defense was okay against the run last year, so if they stop Jonathan Taylor in this game, if they make Carson Wentz uncomfortable coming off that coming off his surgery that he did have on his foot. They get some pressure on him. Eric Fisher's not going to play, obviously, at left tackle. And the left tackle that was supposed to replace him did tear his ACL. So it could be a favorable matchup if they can get some pressure on Carson Wentz. We saw him make a ton of turnovers last year. So if that happens once again, could be a favorable matchup and maybe a sneaky play in week 1. They play Tennessee week 2, Minnesota week 3. Not too excited about them in that matchup, but if you're looking for a streaming defense week 1 with some potential upside, Seahawks could definitely be in your range. Then we got the New York Giants, who showed out to be a pretty capable defense in terms of fantasy football last year. Rostered in 7% of ESPN leagues, 5% of Yahoo leagues. Good chance that they're out there. They play Denver week 1. I know Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback. We're kind of excited about this Broncos offense a little bit, with all the playmakers they got there. But last year, Teddy Bridgewater still had games where he threw a ton of interceptions, even though he's deemed the safe quarterback, which I've kind of been trying to narrative bust. And he just wasn't good in the red zone, honestly. But, and that really could favor the Giants' defense in this matchup if they can get some pressure on him. Definitely could help out. And maybe a defense that you can play this week. Next week, they do play the Washington football team. A little bit of upside there, and then they play Atlanta after that. Atlanta, probably I'm going to fade that game, but a little bit of upside with the Giants. You could probably stream them week to week, depending on the matchup. Then last but not least, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. They have a rough start to the season, honestly. They got the Washington football team. You could stream them this week, but then they play Dallas and Kansas City after that, so you're probably not going to want to play them in either matchup there. They're only rostered in 3% of ESPN leagues, 38% of Yahoo leagues. Should be a pretty good defense, especially with Brandon Staley coming over as the new head coach, who was the Rams defensive coordinator last year. That really turned that unit around, really got them to the top defense in the league. So a team that I'm pretty excited about defensively, but they have a tough schedule, so maybe you can stash them on the end of your bench, or you can just wait till they're available on a good week. Maybe you're looking at them ahead of time, saying, hey, they're a good matchup to stream, in week 5, so I'm going to pick them up in week 4 so that I had them ahead of time. Just pay attention to the schedules. That's really important, especially when you're streaming defenses. But with that being said, these are my week 1 waiver wire pickups. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully it gives you some insight of potential players to stash for the 2021 fantasy football season. If you think I missed anybody, if you have somebody that you really like that's available on waiver wires in your league, leave it down in the comments below. If you want any thoughts, any advice at all, please feel free to ask. I'm definitely here to help you guys out the best that I can. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Definitely helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports. And that's truly one for you, the viewers, helping you with your fantasy football teams, helping you with DFS, whether it's NBA or NFL, talking all the different football news, talking some NFL draft prospects as we move closer to the 2022 NFL draft. But with that being said, if you are new or current subscribers yet to do so, also hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.